We have with us Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General of CII, joining our panel. Ashish Wakankar continues to be with us. Chandrajit, good afternoon. This is Arnab here. Good fiscal consolidation path, but not everybody is very happy. But corporate India is very happy. Markets are rebounding. The criticism being that there isn't enough in terms of tax slabs, changes for the salaried middle class. There is some criticism coming in about the removal of the indexation part as far as property sales are concerned, and there is an apprehension that the cost of property sales will go up, the withdrawal of indexation from property sale transactions. But I want your overall sense, because the good news is that the numbers are very good. We'll be a shining star in the world in terms of our global numbers, and that's what Ashish is very excited about. What's your overall take? You're the man at CII. What's CII's overall response to the budget?
Thanks, Arnab, and thank you very much for having me on your show once again. Few points. Number one, as you mentioned, the macroeconomic fundamentals have come out clearly very strong, and that's very important for an emerging economy which is aspiring to be a developed economy soon. Number one. Number two, if you see, the budget carries forward what the economic survey also talked about as to how do we involve different sections into the economic growth story of India. So it's just not the government, but there is this trust which has been given to the private sector. It's the focus that we see on the rural economy. The focus, very interestingly, the way states have been incentivized to say that you do the next gen reforms, we give more incentives. That's a very, very innovative way of looking at how do we usher in the next gen reforms, which are all at the states at this point in time. So I think from the story of employment creation, from the story of skilling, to the capex being very well biased towards the agri-economy and rural economy, and the focus on states, it's a good story for India, just not the Indian business.
So but is it enough? I mean, for example, I think you spoke about the incentive to states when one is talking about a provision of 1.5 lakh crore provisioning, I thought, for long-term interest rates, in order to encourage states to put in money for infrastructure. Is that enough? You see states responding?
You see, I see states responding because, what's happening is investments would go. If I really look at the entire budget as a piece, there is a lot of focus towards how private sector can play a role into enhancing its investment and thereby creating more employment.
Yeah, please continue.
So from the point of view of the states really coming in strongly, I think that's a great opportunity for states, because private sector will come into those states and create employment, create wealth, and create prosperity for the state.
Yeah, Niranjan is the next question. I've been telling our producers.
How the industry responds to, for example, there was a specific mention of Bihar. There was a specific mention of Andhra Pradesh. There was a thrust on both these states, and we know why. It's what was classically called coalition compulsion, that the UPA had to do some sort of balancing during the UPA times. And are we seeing a return of that now in Modi 3.0 with a special package for Bihar, special package for Andhra? How does the industry respond to this? Because these are the only two states that are seeing big allocations. Mr. Banerjee.
While you say that, yes, these are the only two states, but if you really look at certain infrastructure issues, which has been also put on focus in the budget, be it Assam, say for instance, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, yes. The FM did speak about many other states for many other very critical areas of infrastructure, and especially when it comes to disaster management and areas like that. So, and I think if the states perform, they get more. It was not a good story for a particular city which was to be built up, to be completely shelved. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities even for the industry to get into specific states as well as beyond.
Sir, yesterday when we did an interview with you, you had some expectations from the government. Specifically, we spoke about unemployment. That problem seems to be resolved, but we do not understand, sir, what is the benefit of giving an internship worth 5,000 rupees and how is it going to impact both the government and the companies which take on board these interns? If you can explain that and break it down for us, sir.
So I think there are the entire employment-linked incentive that we have been talking about actually benefits not just the large-scale companies, but also goes down to the mid-size and the smaller size. The ELI or even like before the PLI, these are only triggers, and once you trigger through a scheme of this kind or an incentive of this kind, you see that there is more and more traction that grows, and people, the tendency to employ more, the incremental employment goes up. And I think the part which is the government which is going to pay is a big boost, big help for because one of the things that did not work out very well was, if you remember, the apprenticeship program which the government had launched some time back. But we now see some of these schemes really working, and therefore this expectation from the private sector is also going to be very strong. And I think that the private sector should play a role in terms of seeing how it can create a virtuous cycle by creating more employment, more demand, and greater depth in the economy.
You think all those measures that have been announced are going to crowd in the private capital, Mr. Banerjee?
I think, the capex, which is, we were talking about a 25% growth. With that not being there, even then, I see private sector crowding in, because the focus today is also on urban infrastructure. There is a lot of scope there on private sector. The rural infrastructure, there is a lot of scope on that. I also see a lot of work being done. The finance minister talked about tax simplification, which is a very, very big announcement to be done in 6 months' time. She'll get into a project mode, something which has really never happened. Some archaic laws being really revisited on a mission mode. These are great boosters for the private sector. So it's just not the way you look at numbers, but the simplification, the decriminalization, all of these are going to be very critical issues for private sector to get boosted towards bringing in more investment.
Overall, if I could ask you, Mr. Banerjee, and then we'll take it forward with Ashish as well. Do you see this as a balancing budget? I mean, there was huge pressure on the government to do something for the middle class, and you look at the savings. The minister also made a mention. She made a specific mention on the new tax regime. She said savings up to 17,500, and you do the math. I mean, on the middle class, they were under pressure. They were under pressure from the corporates as well. They've reduced corporate tax for foreign companies. They've tried to do a balancing act on every side. They've even tried to balance out with their allies. So would you call this a classic balancing budget, feel-good budget, one that's tried to keep everyone happy? Or at least tried to?
See, a budget should have everything. A budget should have something for everyone. And I think that's a very important the act of the finance minister. And yes, and each one is related. The private sector employs more people, so it creates wealth. And of course, the poorer section of the society, the middle income group, if their taxation regime is simplified and they can move over to the new regime, they also save money. There's more money in the hands of the poor. Yes, balancing is required, and I think it has been done very, very well.
And lastly, Chandrajit, was there a focus with China in mind? Did you think that, a shift in manufacturing focus, all this, about mobile phones, reduction of basic customs duty for mobile phone, mobile printed circuit boards, mobile chargers. Then she went on to critical minerals, where she reduced and removed customs duty. then she went to solar, then she went to shrimp, then she went to steel and copper. So, and in fact removed BCD on ferronickel. All this seemed to me quite clearly that here is our opportunity to compete more aggressively with China. How do you view it?
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. And I think we must, because we need to build domestic capacity, and we should not be sort of over dependent on one source, or even one, just not only one source of input, but also in terms of technology diversification. So I think we need to create, this gives the customs duty changes, etc., gives us very good opportunity for us to develop our internal capacity, as well as look at other sources where criticality of resources are involved. So I would imagine that this was a very, very tactical move to see development of Atmanirbharata in domestic capacity.